Okay, good evening and welcome back once again to the We Are Marshall podcast. My name is Stephen Marshall and this is my co-host Bill McIntyre. We had just two guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you would like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and Rumble. And we are in discussions to hopefully do one of our next episodes to start going live on Twitch. But if you go to Rumble, Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of our episodes. Download the free app Rumble and search the We Are Marshall podcast. Then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We would also love it if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts and check out Vela on Amazon, where Bill also writes episodic short stories for your viewing. And he's also writing a book now that we will bring to you as soon as he gets some more information done on that. You can also check out my two books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist. Both are available now. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go on our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to Local Prints New Hampshire on the top left. They're a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they support us. Also, check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website just like all the other big dating websites out there with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere. But Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. We would also like if you would support our newest sponsor, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting. You can contact and look into them at www.armyrangerpainting.com. They're a full-service contracting company supporting Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Check them out and schedule a free estimate of any project you have. If you have any questions or issues on any of our episodes, you can reach us both at the following emails. Bill can be reached, bill@wearemarshallpodcast.com, and I can be reached, steve@wearemarshallpodcast.com. So we have a lot to cover today. We've been away for a little bit, so let us jump right into the issues of the day. Today, we will be discussing many of the cases before the Supreme Court, as well as the border and many crimes committed by illegal aliens in our country, such as the murders of a 13 and 12-year-old girls. Then we will end with a human interest story that will touch your heart related to the many hospital ships around the world helping save lives. Now, I'm going to jump right into the first topic, Bill. And the first one that I have right now is the Supreme Court may rule on Trump's immunity, abortion access, and climate protections this week. The Supreme Court is turning toward the final frenzied days of its term, readying potential blockbuster decisions on abortion, guns, and former President Donald Trump's claims of absolute immunity. The court will hand down opinions on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday this week as the justices aim to finish their work by the last day in June. The decisions will land rapidly at a tense time for the 6-3 conservative liberal court. Just before a historic presidential election that has been heavily influenced by its decision 2 years ago to overturn Roe versus Wade. Public opinion of the court remains at record lows. Conservative Justice Samuel Alito, meanwhile, has faced sharp blowback over two controversial flags raised at his homes in Virginia and New Jersey. Here are some of the remaining cases to be decided this week. Trump claims absolute immunity. Trump's appeal for immunity from special counsel Jack Smith's election subversion charges landed at the Supreme Court late in the term and instantly overshadowed most of the docket. Trump argued that without immunity, presidents would be hamstrung in office, always fearful of being second-guessed by a zealous prosecutor after leaving the White House. That position appeared to have some purchase on the conservative Supreme Court during oral arguments in April, although it didn't appear Trump would be able to get Smith's case tossed entirely. The immunity case appears likely to come down to whether Trump's post-election actions were official, that is, steps he was taking as president, or whether they were private, which would not likely receive immunity. An appeals court in Washington sided against Trump. But anyway, the next one is abortion for health and emergencies. The Supreme Court will decide what happens when pregnant women show up to the hospital with medical emergencies in the states that have strict bans on abortion. An Idaho law bars doctors from performing abortions unless the mother's life is at risk, but it makes no exception if that she would suffer long-term health consequences. The Biden administration argues a federal law requires hospitals to perform abortions if the health of a mother is at stake, and an appeals court agreed. The decision in Moyle v. U.S. will place abortion access on the forefront again this summer, just as Americans begin turning into the presidential election. The next one is January 6 rioters seek to shorten their sentences. A former Pennsylvania police officer who rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, challenged federal obstruction charges filed against him in a case that could also affect Trump. The former president was charged with violating the same obstruction law for different reasons. The case was filed by Joseph Fisher, who was charged with multiple crimes for pushing his way into the Capitol after attending Trump's rally outside the White House on January 6. Fisher's attorney told the justices that prosecutors went too far by charging his client with obstructing an official proceeding, a crime he said Congress intended to be used to prohibit the destruction of evidence. Some 350 rioters were charged with the crime, which can add up to 20 years to a prison sentence. Some of those charges have been dropped as part of plea agreements. Prosecutors say the charges should apply to January 6 cases because the plain meaning of the words obstruct and official proceedings covers the attacks that interrupted Congress's counting of ballots to certify Joe Biden's 2020 win. Critics say the law was intended to prevent evidence tampering before a trial or investigation. Next one is government regulation of Facebook. The Supreme Court is confronting a series of cases at the intersection of the First Amendment and social media. Perhaps the most notable are two suits challenging laws enacted in Florida and Texas aimed at stopping social media giants like Facebook and X from throttling conservative views. The state laws ban online platforms from removing posts that express opinions, such as political content. The Republican governors who signed the laws said they were needed to keep the social media platforms from discriminating against conservatives. Two trade associations representing the social media companies sued, claiming they violated the First Amendment. One federal appeals court in Atlanta sided with the companies and against Florida. Another in New Orleans allowed this Texas law to take effect. The Supreme Court paused implementation of the Texas law in 2022. The cases are Moody v. NetChoice and NetChoice v. Paxton. The next one is cleaning up online disinformation. The justices must decide if the White House and federal agencies, such as the FBI, may urge social media platforms to take down content that government views as misinformation or whether those efforts violate the First Amendment. Biden officials have for years tried to persuade social media platforms to take down posts featuring misinformation about vaccines, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the 2020 election. Among other things, Republican officials in two states, Missouri and Louisiana, and 5 social media users sued over that practice in 2022, arguing the administration did far more than persuade the tech giants to take down a few deceptive items. The case is Murthy versus Missouri. The next one is government regulations threatened. A series of cases this term challenged the power of federal agencies to approve regulations or enforce them. Among the most significant are 2 appeals filed by Atlantic herring fishermen. The captains are challenging a Department of Commerce regulation that requires them to pay the salary of federal observers they bring on board to monitor the catch and ensure the crew follows other fishing regulations. The court is being asked to overturn a 1984 precedent, Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council. that required courts to give deference to federal agencies when creating regulations based on an ambiguous law. Conservatives have long sought to rein in regulatory authority, arguing Washington has too much control over industry. The justices have been incrementally diminishing federal power for years, but the new case gives the court an opportunity to take a much broader stroke. Critics fear a ruling for the fishermen would threaten a vast swath of other federal regulations aimed at protecting the environment, public health, and workplace safety. The cases are Loper Bright Enterprises versus Raimondo and Relentless versus Department of Commerce. Lower court sided with the government on both sides. The final one is domestic violence gun law upheld. In a significant Second Amendment case, the justices upheld the constitutionality of a federal law that bars people who are the subject of domestic violence restraining orders from possessing guns. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the opinion for the 8-1 majority. A Texas man, Zaki Rahimi, was indicted for violating that law following a series of shootings, including one in which police said he fired into the air at a Whataburger restaurant after a friend's credit card was declined. Rahimi's lawyers claimed a Supreme Court decision 2 years ago in the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin meant the domestic violence law cannot be squared with the Constitution because it has no historical analog. A 6-3 majority in Bruin said gun regulations must be consistent with this nation's historical tradition of firearm regulation. But the Supreme Court ruled that there were similar historic laws on the books at the time of the nation's founding that allowed the government to disarm dangerous people. Justice Clarence Thomas penned a solo dissent. And access to abortion pill maintained. In another major abortion case, the Supreme Court upheld U.S. and Drug Administration efforts to expand access to the abortion pill mifepristone. The unanimous ruling was a significant setback for the anti-abortion movement and what was the first major Supreme Court case on reproductive rights since the conservative majority overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. By ruling that the anti-abortion doctors don't have standing to sue, the court left expanded access to the drug in place. Access to mifepristone has become particularly important after the court overturned Roe and many states banned the procedure in ethical settings. Medication abortions account for nearly 2/3 of all abortions in the U.S., according to some estimates. The appeal was filed by anti-abortion doctors and said their practices have been affected because they must treat women who had complications from the drug. The FDA and outside medical groups have stressed that mifepristone is safe. The lead medical group in the suit, the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, was incorporated in Amarillo, Texas, months before it sued. The location allowed the group to choose a court where it was guaranteed to be assigned to conservative U.S. District Judge Matthew Kaczmarek. Now the case is expected to return to Kaczmarek's court. Though the decision was a win for abortion rights groups, it was not a total victory. Other groups are likely to sue over the same provisions. 3 conservative states that intervened in the original lawsuit may attempt to revive it. Now, how I want to approach these, Bill, is I would like to just have a discussion on each and every one. So I'm going to go up and we're going to start on right where I started on this particular topic. So the first one that we're going to discuss initially is Trump's claims of absolute immunity. Now, I'm in the belief that nobody is above the law. I know that's thrown around a lot. But if you are doing something in the conduction of a federal position that you hold, like the presidency, shouldn't those be, have immunity? What do you think?
You should have definite protections that allow you to make the decision that you have to make. I mean, people could somehow stretch that to say that certain people are given additional, maybe unreasonable amounts of powers, but it's not a cop out to say that national security is something that has to be, always in mind. So like things like freedom of information, for example, might not apply when it comes to something that might be a threat to national security. That's my thoughts on that one. Now you mentioned.
Well, the next one we would discuss would be.
I just want to make one point about what we're talking about. You mentioned something very important to me. You said if it as a former president, he doesn't, I don't believe, should not be afforded the rights of immunity, because unless I'm wrong, he's no longer president. He's a private citizen. He's afforded protections, but he's not operating in official capacity. So he definitely does not have immunity in his actions, which I think he tends to act like he does, outside of the presidency, which as of 2020 he was no longer. Am I wrong about that? Am I take on that?
No, I agree 100% with you. Anything while he was as the president conducting his duties, he probably should have immunity because it would hamper a president. I do agree with that statement. But the outside that purview, no immunity. That's how I feel.
Right. Because
So
he's got some issues with that, with some of the dinner conversations and all that he had. So.
He does. So we'll see what happens with that this week. The next one is abortion for health and emergencies. Now, I'm against abortion. Okay, you know that. But if it comes to certain situations like this, health and emergencies, yes, definitively. Rape, incest, yes, definitively. Other than that, because it is utilized for birth control more than anything else, I disagree with that. And as we know, ever since Roe versus Wade was overturned, abortions are higher than they ever have been. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I have a particular sensitivity to this subject because I'm dating a moonbat liberal, and no offense to regular liberals, just was a moonbat. But she pointed out something interesting to me because in the process of Roe versus Wade being overturned, it opened the floodgate of a lot of draconian regulations in certain states that actually affect women's health. Now, for example, in Arkansas, there's a case right now where there's a woman who is suffering medically because she has a stillborn fetus that's basically deteriorating inside of her body and causing many multiple medical complications that could kill her. And doctors are so afraid of lawsuits that they won't perform a surgery on her because the laws of the state are so clear about this that it's becoming an access to women's health matter as well as about abortion. And I'm not in any way supporting abortion, but I think some states, minus the federal guarantees provided by Roe versus Wade, some states have probably taken it a little too far and actually have started to deny basic essential health services related to pregnancy because of the hardline approach to abortion. And it is a real thing. It's going to be looked at. It's something that a lot of people probably wouldn't think about until they hear about these cases. But I looked for these cases, and they're there. And it had little to do with abortion, but it's been affected by laws created about abortion. But overall, I think that I don't have the evidence, the statistics. I don't know if you do, but I'm of the opinion that abortion is out of control. It's used for in a lot of cases,
birth control,
to pregnancy, so essentially birth control. I don't have the stats on that, so I'd be reluctant to make a bold statement. But it's a complex issue. But I think that it has to be approached from a woman's access to the medical care perspective. But as for the abortion of it, the actual abortion aspect of it, it continues to be a challenge when you reduce it to the right individual states. So I'll have to see where that goes. Hopefully some reforms happen. There are some states who have gone pretty far with this, and I'll leave it at that.
Well, they have gone far, but when the statistics clearly show that abortion has gone higher than ever, even with Roe versus Wade, that tells you that there's a big problem.
And I'm not talking about that at all.
And I like their approach. Maybe the state should not be so draconian in some issues because, we got to worry about women's health on top of that, definitely.
You can't have surgery that saves your life. That's a little bit. But okay, move on.
The next one is the January 6th rioters seek to shorten sentences. Well, I look at this in a couple ways, okay? I know currently that there is a guy named Steve Bannon about to go to court for contempt of Congress, okay?
Sure.
I know that there is a guy, Peter Navarro, who is in jail currently for contempt of Congress. These both people were cabinet members with Trump, okay? Now, the problem I have with this is the hypocrisy of it, okay? If you have a attorney general, Merrick Garland, who is behind putting Steve Bannon in jail and putting in Peter Navarro. I mean, they don't go to jail unless the attorney general is on board with this, okay?
right.
But the attorney general himself is in contempt of Congress. I have a problem because he is not going to be going to jail, but he is okay to send them to. And then these
Well, the top
sentences that were,
lawmaker of the country is above the law.
and nobody should be. Again, here we go with this. Okay. And that's why I premised it with what I did with Trump's. This guy seems to be above the law. Biden seems to be above the law. These things are terrible. These charges that these guys got for January 6th, basically for trespassing, are ludicrous. They should be shortened. I hope they do something about that. We will see. What think you, Bill?
I think January 6th there's a definite. You have to categorize the level of offenders. You had those who conducted some serious, malfeasance, if you will, some serious general disorder, while they were destroying federal property and occupying offices and things like that. But a lot of people who were charged with the planning and executing of the event and all that, it was essentially an organized protest. They can try all they want and say that Donald Trump instigated it. Yes, there are a couple of comments that were questionable that he had made, but it was funny how they edited out the comments in which he said clearly to our supporters, we must do so in a peaceful and organized manner. Some knuckleheads took it upon themselves to take it too far, and things got out of hand for sure. People died. But overall, though, the charges did not reflect the crime as anybody in this country saw it. It was seen to be singling out people that like the J. Edgar Hoover days, where he picked a person that he thought was dangerous and anti-American, like the Promise Keepers, and indicted a guy who wasn't even there.
Well,
with a maximum sentence, it was ridiculous.
I have a problem with them even pointing a finger at Donald Trump. Okay, if that'd be like any athletic event that I've ever been a part of, where it says, "Hey, go out there and kick their ass." Does that mean that everybody should go out there and just kick the people's ass? No, it's a figure of speech to go win the game.
When they have
exactly. This is the problem with that. So we'll see what goes on with that. It will help Trump in his case if this gets shortened too, because then they will have a lot of problems, trying him.
If Trump gets a more favorable look on January 6th, a lot of voters are going to change their possible perceptions of him as a candidate, for sure.
Exactly. And then the next one that I got, this one's pretty important, Bill, is cleaning up online and disinformation. Now, I have a problem with that because here's a couple of things, okay?
I know
Who are the arbiters of truth? Who's going to decide what is to be taken down and not? We've known this is not working right now at all. You have fact checkers. They're not fact checkers. They're liberal left-wing groups that are doing anything to shut down conservatism or anything that disagree with you. And the perfect example is Snopes is supposed to be one of the largest ones out there. It's actually a liberal website that will fact check conservatives, but never does it fact check Democrats or liberals in the fashion it should. And the proof is, just remember when the riots happened down in Virginia, when they tried to say Trump said there's peaceful people on the other side. Well, just today, the website Snopes came out and said that was wrong and misinformation, that wasn't what went down. Imagine that. After all that, they said that. And then you have all this other misinformation that they tried to classify with COVID, that if you said anything about masks, you were banned. If you said anything about the efficacy of the vaccine, you were banned. After the fact that all this came out, the people that had problems with masks, the efficacy, the 6 feet distance were right, and they got banned. So that was classified as disinformation. So this is the problem I have with it. What do you think?
Oh, Steve, I'd love to add to that, but I can't. Okay, I think you just absolutely nailed it. I would be flattered if I did to even think that I came up with all that, as well as you just did. Because the fact is that all those things were clearly censored, and that's the word that we have to focus on. Okay,
yes,
what they were doing was censoring. So
absolutely.
These are people that are hired by social media entities as supposedly legitimate, honest, impartial, and bipartisan. Those two words, impartial and bipartisan, determining what truth is. if there were ever an opening for corruption, then there it is. Okay, so you can have all the great intentions. Do I want them to clean up social media? Yes. Okay, but I don't have no faith that the people that they put in charge of doing it will do it properly. Nor do I believe that anybody's actually going to be able to decide what is misinformation and what is real information. All there is information. It's up to people, educated people, which seem to be in a short supply these days, determining through rational thought and actually doing a little research what is true and what isn't. Okay. But you have to be able to put everything out there. And when you have all these people on your friends list who have these posts that are banned, sensitive content, this has been proven to be fact checks determine this is a lie and all that. And yeah, you gave some great examples. So many things that were a lie were people saying, I don't want to take the vaccine, it's not tested. It wasn't tested. That's not a misinformation. It's a fact. Polio vaccine took 10 years to develop. This vaccine took 19 days and 38 minutes, to develop. It's bullshit. So I have no faith at all that anybody is ever going to come to an actual agreement on what is truth. What we have to do is let all the information be out there, let people do their homework and make their own decisions. And that's all there is to it.
Well, what's going to happen, and the Democrats fear this bill, but we don't, is AI is going to start taking over fact checking. And let me give you something that's going on with AI that you probably don't know yet. If you utilize AI to search who won the 2020 election, do you know with all the information out there, it can't tell you. Well, that's what the Democrats fear right there. Yeah. But we'll move on. We got a few more here. Now the next one is the domestic violence gun law upheld. Now, if you've got a restraining order against you, yeah, I think there should be a pause on you being able to get weapons, your weapons taken away. But once that goes away, in my opinion, you should be fine. I think a problem with this country is we literally throw people away and they're no good to us anymore. Let's say they break the law, they go into jail, it's a felony. Now they got to carry that felony with them forever. I don't agree with that. I believe if you went to jail, you served your time, you came out for a period of time and are showing you're a good citizen, all that stuff should be put behind a firewall where only law enforcement can see it. That's it. Nobody else. No job, no nothing like that. And the reason law enforcement can see it, just so they can see the history of an individual's crime spree or whatever they've done. But it should never, once you serve your time, that scarlet letter should be removed from you. You should not be put in a life sentence. What do you think?
I think that's very critical that we get down to the nuts and bolts of what is a domestic abuser: suggested, accused, rumored, convicted. Okay, those are the categories you have to look at, because what they're trying to do is they're all trying to open the law for red flag laws. Red flag laws. I had a massive argument with my liberal friend there about this. She's all for it. I said, well, of course you are. She said, why? I said, because you don't have any care about the individual people. You only care about your gun agenda, which is no guns, coming into effect. It's so easy to say, oh, that person's dangerous, and that person all of a sudden can't hold office. That person can't do this and all that because a Salem mass witch trial happened with a person, So, yes, I think if a person has a restraining order, that's a legitimate mark on their record, and that should be a reason to not be afforded a firearm. I believe that, unless maybe there's a hearing process to prove that the charge was legitimate. So make sure it's a legitimate restraining order if that's possible. But do I think that people who otherwise? I think that dangerous people are dangerous people, and there are laws in place. We don't have a lack of gun laws in this country, Steve. We have a lack of enforcement. We're very selective on what we choose to enforce. In this case, if someone is deemed to be dangerous, then yeah, there are steps you can take to make sure they never obtain a firearm.
Yeah, and there's a lack of mental health help in this country.
Yeah, man, a background check is only going to show that you haven't done anything yet.
Exactly.
Doesn't mean you're not going to in the future.
100% correct. Yep.
Here's a red flag. I go into a gun store. I need a gun. Well, wait, no, I need it now. That's a red flag. Okay, yes. Right there. Yeah.
So pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
But the next one I got here is the access to abortion pill maintained. Now, I think this makes abortion way too easy. It is definitively an abortion pill that's used for birth control. So here we go once again.
Somewhat
They
half the
found
pill, right?
Yep, they
Yeah.
found a way around actual abortions to provide a pill. And how bad is this pill doing to some of these women's insides? You can just pop a pill now and get rid of the pregnancy. How about not getting rid of the pregnancy? How about if you're going to take the pill to get rid of it, how about take the pill to prevent it to begin with? What do you think, Bill?
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, this is tough. Okay, but yes, okay. If a person failed to take their birth control pill and they have a sexual encounter, the next step is to take the day after pill, which will effectively um, destroy any possibly fertilized eggs. Okay, we know about this. It's I don't dive too deep into the waters of abortion because I don't want to ever impose upon anybody's body, if you will. But the fact is that yes, that would be ideal if people took proper precautions and used the birth control in general. But the birth control pill also eliminates a lot of other problems for people, which is visibly being seen going to a clinic. It takes away the attacks on clinics by religious zealots and other people protesting them and different things. The pill is a much more private way of doing this, and the morality of the pill versus the possible effects down the line. Those are subjects that remain to be seen. But a lot of people were very concerned about this decision in particular, and them upholding it is probably going to make a lot of people who are very pro-abortion very happy, and it's going to make the people who are against this subsequently as unhappy. So,
Well, good stuff, good topics. Now we're going to move on to Bill's first topic of
important
the day.
stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Bill, go right ahead and your first topic.
All right. Well, without going on a rail about illegal immigration, and by the way, you're not going to hear me use the word migrant. These people are illegal immigrants. 10 million of them have stormed into this country. Our government has shown just how little they actually care about protecting its citizens, and probably one of my worst fears is coming true. We have now episodes of immigrants, illegal immigrants, coming from lawless countries that don't have any kind of enforcement, and corrupt governments, corrupt police departments, now acting the way they did in their own countries. And now, just two stories I want to talk about in particular are the rape of a 13-year-old girl and the murder of a 12-year-old girl. And these are both at the hands of not only illegal immigrants, but unchecked, verified by Homeland Security and the Border Patrol, that not only were they not vetted, they were just waved through. Okay. They knew the countries of origin, but that was it. Nothing was done. They weren't tagged. They weren't bagged. They weren't detained. They just walked right across the border. So the first case is of a young lady whose name shall remain nameless, but she's a 13-year-old girl who was walking through a park in Queens last week with a male friend. The suspect, Christian Giovanni Inga Landi, a 25-year-old Ecuadorian migrant. Ecuadorian legal immigrant who entered the U.S. illegally in 21. He was apprehended after community members recognized him from a photo and video circulated around the community. And as good Samaritans, they tackled and subdued this gentleman. And I'm being extremely sarcastic. They got a real good picture of this guy on his bicycle, and he was arrested. First-degree rape, first-degree sex abuse, first-degree robbery, first-degree menacing, second-degree kidnapping, first-degree unlawful imprisonment, and other crimes, one of which was that he filmed it. The sexual assault occurred when two schoolmates, this young lady and a friend, same age, were approached by the suspect in the park in Queens. The suspect forcibly removed their cell phones, tied them together, raped the girl in front of the young man, and then fled the location on foot. They were taken to the hospital. They are both in stable condition. The girl, of course, is extremely traumatized by the event, as I'm sure her male friend. Thank you to the community for taking care of this, but you have to ask, what was this guy doing here? What was this guy able to just go around and freely, just conduct his activity like he was like this. And the father of this girl, he directly spoke out against President Biden's border policy, because now we have a guy who can speak with all the authority in the world, and God bless him, let him speak, because he's been affected by this. His daughter, I can't even imagine a 13-year-old girl. This is close to you, I imagine, Steve.
Yeah,
Being
absolutely.
assaulted by this animal, and the just the years of possible decades of recovery from such an episode. The dad, now the name of the woman, of course, is withheld, so the father's identity is as well. He told the New York Post, "This is what happens when illegal migrants are allowed to cross the border unchecked. This open border policy, I never agree with it, because that just invites a lot of things that we don't need. And look what came in." Horrible story. I don't know what's going to happen to this guy, but he is charged with so many charges that something resembling justice may actually occur here. And I hate to be skeptical in my language, but I really just have no faith in the system anymore. So now we have another outrageous example. Did not result in this one resulted in a death. Okay, this past week in Houston, 2 illegal immigrants, Franklin Jose Pena Ramos, 26, and Johan Jose Rango Martinez, 21, have been arrested for the murder of 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary. This girl's identity has been released. The men allegedly bound Jocelyn's hand behind her back after luring her under a bridge. They tied her hand behind her back during the assault, strangled her after removing her pants. They didn't mention rape, but it could be suggested by that. They strangled her and dumped her body in a bayou. Harris County court heard on Monday the details. These two scumbags are charged with strangling Jocelyn Nungary to death, killing her. The prosecutors, they said that they under the bridge. They remained with her for over 2 hours as they did their thing with her, then killed her and disposed of her body. The suspects from Venezuela are from Venezuela. They entered the U.S. illegally before being released from custody, and an ICE enforcement officer confirmed that they both entered the U.S. without inspection, parole, or admission by a U.S. immigration officer on an unknown date, an unknown location, at an unknown time. This is just, I'm sorry, but this is not the first, okay? Keep her name alive. Kate Steinle, there's one, killed by a guy who was deported 3 times in San Francisco several years ago. You think that would have made this issue enough that people care enough about it to put a stop to it? But no. Our government is tasked with keeping the citizens safe. Bottom line, that is it, okay? And they're not doing it. And this is just disgusting. It's going to be a lot worse before it gets better. And I want to say one thing to my liberal friends. I know that you guys have one thing going for you. You don't like numbers. You like to just dismiss things. Well, I look at it this way. How many is too many? 1 is too many. 1. And we're looking at a lot more of those right now. We have a lot of crime that's not being reported on.
Well, the major thing that I see, those 2 stories are absolutely terrible. And yeah, you're right. That's how old my daughter is. I would go to jail. I would go after them and go to jail. But the big thing this is a major issue. So don't let my next thing, anybody think I'm belittling that, because that is bad. But there's also a bigger issue that's transpiring with that border. We just caught 8 Tajik terrorists that came over that border. Okay? Now, to me, that's worse, because these people want to do mass casualties. Okay? And if you think that those are the only 8 terrorists got over, then I got some land to sell you on the moon. It is ridiculous.
No ties to ISIS, Steve.
We have
seconds behind them.
And these guys got vetted. That's the disgusting thing. They went through the vetting process and still got through it. So what's that tell you? Who didn't get vetted and is here? Who got vetted and is still here? I mean, this whole system that we worried about, Bill, was the main thing with terrorism. These other stories are awful too. But now we're seeing that they definitively are getting in here. We knew it. We talked about it, and they're here, people. We are not racist. We don't want to shut the border because we hate any race. We want to shut the border because there are people coming over that border that want to kill our citizens. Us. It's bad. We need to do something about it now. That's what we have on that.
Well, the original intention of immigration was to use the people of the world, not other countries, the world, okay,
Yes.
in a way that would make the American experiment a better thing. We were an idea. We took people based upon what they brought to the table. It was people who had skills in building, and people had skills in different things that we had a quota. And yes, you could say quotas are racist, but a quota is something you have to have versus this and everybody come, free for all. But we don't owe anybody the right to come here. It is not a right. We are a country. A country, by definition, has borders. So, to conclude my comment here, seeing that we apparently don't have borders, do we actually even live in a country anymore?
Valid statement. Very valid statement. But good stuff, people. We're going to move on here at the We Are Marshall podcast to our third topic. Please like, share, and subscribe all of our episodes all over your social media. And we can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, Rumble, and do look for us on Twitch soon going live. But the next one, I wanted to stick with the theme of the Supreme Court bill. So I went to another story that the Supreme Court's on currently. And the Supreme Court to decide whether states can restrict gender-affirming care for minors. I mean, the fact that I'm even talking about this blows my mind. Why would we do anything like this to a child saying that they want to be something when we don't let them make any decisions till they're 18? Why can't we just wait it out? But anyway, the Supreme Court on Monday agreed to hear the Biden administration's challenge to a transgender care ban in Tennessee, delving into the complicated and politically fraught issue of gender affirming care in a substantive way for the first time. And let's call it what it is. It's sex change operation. It is not. You can put gender affirming care out there all you want to try to make it seem less than what it is. It is a sex change operation. The state law enacted last year bans hormone therapy and puberty blockers for minors and imposes civil penalties for doctors who violate the prohibitions. It is among a growing number of state laws enacted in recent years targeting transgender care. Nearly half of U.S. states have enacted bans on transgender care for minors, according to the Human Rights Campaign. The case will be heard this fall. The Supreme Court was always going to have to resolve how state bans on gender-affirming medical care can be reconciled. Sex change medical care, you mean, with its approach to sex-based discrimination, said Steve Ledek, CNN Supreme Court analyst and professor at the University of Texas School of Law. Today's grant sets up this issue as one of the early blockbusters for the court's upcoming term. Laws in Kentucky and Tennessee were challenged by the Biden administration and families of transgender minors. The Supreme Court only agreed to hear the challenge filed by the Biden administration in Tennessee. In September, the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in Cincinnati reversed a district court ruling that blocked the gender-affirming care, sex change care, ban from being enforced. In other words, the appeals court allowed the ban to take effect. Republican lawmakers who support the ban say decisions about care should be made after an individual becomes an adult, as I said. Opponents argue that in addition to violating the civil rights of trans youth, the laws also run afoul of parents' rights to make decisions about their child's medical care. Tennessee's law says that medical providers cannot perform procedures that enable a minor to identify with or live as a purported identity inconsistent with the minor's sex, or treat purported discomfort or distress from a discordance between the minor's sex and asserted identity. The legal fights over similar bans have been moving through federal courts for more than a year. In April, the Supreme Court allowed Idaho officials to temporarily enforce a strict statewide ban on gender-affirming care, sex change care, for most minors. Although it did so on a temporary basis without resolving the underlying questions posed by the case, several groups that advocate for transgender youth called on the Supreme Court to strike down Tennessee's law. It's simple. Everyone deserves access to the medical care that they need, and transgender and non-binary young people are no exception, said Kelly Robinson, president of the Human Rights Campaign. No politician should be able to interfere in decisions that are best made between families and doctors, particularly when that care is necessary and best practice. Lucas Cameron Vaughn, an attorney with the American Civil Liberties Union of Tennessee, criticized state lawmakers for using the bans to fuel divisions for their own political gain. It's crucial to recognize that for trans youth and their families, this isn't about politics, Cameron Vaughn said. It's about the fundamental freedom to access vital, life saving health care. Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti, a Republican, said his office looks forward to defending the law. This case will bring much needed clarity to whether the Constitution contains special protections for gender identity, he said. Now, I just look at it like they continue to say the gender affirming care because they want to make the people that might not be on board with them feel that it's something that they need.
It's
And then
powdered
when they
sugar on a turd.
yeah, and then when they continuously say that it's health care that's needed, I mean, they're not going to die if they don't get a sex change. That's not what's going to happen.
Threatening about it.
Are
Nothing.
they going to have some mental health issues? Possibly, and that we said need to be addressed. They can address that. That we are for. We can send them to the appropriate parties to work them through this till they're 18 to make the decision on their own. Because even some of these kids, when their parents step in and make the decision, when they come to 18, they're like, what did my parents do to me? Some of them are traumatized for the change. So we really have to weigh this in a mental health aspect, in my opinion, and we should be there guiding this person that feels they need this sex change all the way to their 18th birthday. And if at that time, with the care that they got for mental health, they still want this, then they have the right to do it at that point. What do you think, Bill?
I'm pretty close to this, Steve, and anybody who listens to what I'm going to say after this will be probably pretty shocked to hear this. But my youngest daughter announced the other day that she's trans. I still trying to wrap my head around it, but you know, she's my daughter. She's living her life like a boy right now. She's shortened her name. She's dressing like a boy, haircut and all that. And she's wrapping her breasts to make them look like, you know, the concealing bands, like they look like big. What do you call them? The bandages she used to wear, you know, the tape. And she's doing everything she can to live life like a boy. And she hasn't decided if she wants to have the actual addictomy or not. But the fact is that it blows my mind. But she's 21.
Yes.
So I don't have a lot of tolerance, but I don't have a lot of hatred. I don't know why in this day and age so many people can't deal with what they've been given in life, you know, and feel like they don't belong in their own body. But that's not for me to say. I do have a ton of empathy for the mental health aspect of it. But I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to say one word. Minor. Okay? You're a minor. You have to get permission from your parents to do almost anything in this country, including get a tattoo. But you have this radical fringe that is not only telling people that their life is in danger. That's one you just addressed, okay? Your life's in danger because you're not living in the body you think you're supposed to live in now. Your life's in danger. You're making a decision that hundreds of people now have come out publicly in books, on news shows, organizations against the surgeries they've had and the process that led them to it. And they feel they were misled. They felt they were manipulated. They felt they were lied to, and they were coerced. And then you have the fact that as we've covered on the podcast, that it's happening in schools. It's happening outside, in which people are saying to them, "Oh, you've got a headache? You probably don't like your gender." And then they need to start working on people to start transitioning. Okay, it blows my mind. Okay, 18 years old, you are a legal adult. If you can make it that long, then you are legally allowed as a legal adult to have these whatever processes you want to have done, hormone therapy, puberty blockers, which I'm sorry, puberty blockers at this point are out of the question at 18, but hormone therapy and different things, or if necessary, gender modification surgery. But yes, it is a sex change, Steve. It's a big decision.
Absolutely.
And while male and female differ biologically in this particular area, there's much research to suggest at what age people actually mature mentally, in which their brains are fully mature as it were, to make complicated and life-changing decisions. And this is, when you learn that there are companies like Starbucks that had a secret program that allowed funding to help people leave the state against their parents' wishes to get care that's legal in that state but not legal in their own, I'll never buy a cup of coffee there again as long as I live. And I'll tell anybody else I know not to as well. And if you're listening, fuck you, Starbucks. I don't care. Okay? So this is a very major, major issue. This is disinformation, to say that someone's life is in danger, to say that it's life-saving, and that they are old enough to make this decision. I'm not going to say I'm dealing with it. My daughter is an adult, okay? But I'm aware of the complexity and the mental health issues behind what she's going through. And I'm sorry, but somebody as young as 15 years old can't handle something like this.
No way. Absolutely not.
Is the law. Yes, you can block it completely, or if nothing else, age of consent. Done.
I agree 100%.
Did I soft shoe that enough, or should I state my feelings?
No, I think you stated your feelings, but good stuff on that issue. A lot to discuss there, and let's pay attention to what goes on with the gender identity in the Supreme Court. But we're going to move on once again we got a couple more segments, and Bill's got 2 in a row here. Bill, so go ahead and jump right into your next one.
All right. Well, paying attention to themes. Steve likes themes.
I do.
I'm going to extrapolate on the 2 stories of illegal aliens committing crimes, and I'm going to go right to some notable responses to it. Okay, Steve and I plan on getting very much into the election pretty soon. This is a enormous election in our country's history. All elections are big. This one is very, very big. Both sides will tell you that everything is riding on this election. Well, one issue in this election that's going to be prominent is the border, immigration in particular. And you have one side pointing out obvious hazards, as we have tonight. Steve and I, we don't hate immigrants. We talked about the drugs, the human trafficking, the disease, the lack of resources, the financial impact, the draining of communities, people who, by all means, I hate to say this, live here and should be entitled to live the lifestyle they've chosen for themselves without being invaded. Yet, here we are, we're being invaded. And the Democrats, Joe Biden in particular, don't want this, and they don't want to talk about this now because Donald Trump is running on this issue, okay? And Joe Biden better be prepared Thursday to defend this policy, because it really is going to come down to this, because a lot of Joe's followers are also starting to look at the border as one of the most important issues of this election. So we have the response by, of course, Trump and Biden. Trump is right there right now attacking everything he can that's going on with Biden's administration. And Joe's been faced with a lot of things that the timing of which could not be worse for him. Israel, protests, crime, the border, a lot of things are blowing up in his face right now as he's trying to get reelected. And so this issue with these two particular crimes, especially the 12-year-old murder in Houston, have definitely fueled a response in a battle between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And basically, we know, I just told the stories of what happened. You don't need to hear it again. But the White House had a spokesperson release a statement on the 12-year-old girl murdered in Houston this past week. Our hearts go out to the family and loved ones of Jocelyn Nungaray. That wasn't it. We cannot comment on active law enforcement cases, the spokesperson continued. But fundamentally, anyone found guilty of this type of heinous and shocking crime should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Well, they just completely double-spoke against what they're doing, which is not doing that. They're not prosecuting people.
At all.
The White House response comes as immigration and border security is a top issue for voters into the November election. Former President Donald Trump is blaming the Biden administration's border policies for Nungaray's death. Not surprising. On Thursday, he said on Truth Social that we have a new Biden migrant killing. He attaches Joe's name to it. Wow. It's only going to get worse, and it's all crooked Joe Biden's fault. The Biden campaign hit back, pointing to Trump's role in sinking a bipartisan border deal in Congress. Now, on the surface, that is true. The controversial bipartisan border deal that was that was reached by, as it says, both parties, was pulled back by the Republicans because Donald Trump made it clear that he wanted to run on the issue. And they took a lot of heat for it. But we also know, because Steve broke it down on this podcast, that actual bill was a disaster that was going to be as ineffective as anything ever done to stop the actual issue of mass crossings and unvetted people.
It actually wasn't going to stop anything. It had a quota.
The executive action that he did last week, by the way.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Nothing has changed. But Trump is hitting this issue hard, okay? Donald Trump is, and then Biden responded to the attack saying, Donald Trump is making Americans less safe by blocking this border deal. Well, that's old news at this point. Meanwhile, in the most outrageous example yet, though, progressive representative Pramila Jayapal actually openly laughed at a news conference, at news coverage of the migrant who raped the 13-year-old girl in New York City. Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat at Washington, mostly represents Seattle, shocking, had herself a good chuckle during the MSNBC with the inaptly named Joy Reid. Nothing joyful about that woman. Which she mocked news coverage of the case of the Ecuadorian migrant accused of having bound, gagged, and raped a 13-year-old girl at Queen's Park. The Congressional Progressive Caucus chairwoman scoffed at a news story on Fox, their favorite target, during a Tuesday appearance on The Readout that touched on the appalling June 13th attack by Christian Giovanni in Galandi, who admitted to the cops what he did and how he did it. Jayapal said there's a lot of fear-mongering, as if to say this is not a real thing, this is just the media spinning it. She told host Joy Reid after hailing President Biden's executive order to extend permanent residency status to migrant spouses of U.S. citizens who have lived in the country for 10 years. So that's how this segued. Reid then turned Jayapal's attention to a sample of Tuesday's media coverage and said, here's the 3 cable networks reporting of this story. The host said, our MSNBC's banner said, soon Biden announces legal protections for undocumented spouses of citizens. CNN said, Biden announces new protections for some undocumented spouses. But here was Fox's banner. Migrant arrested for raping 13-year-old New York City girl. She added, inaccurately disclaiming that the cable news rating leader did not cover the executive order on its Tuesday broadcasts. Ha! Jayapal openly laughed. Yes, she said. Just like triumphantly said, yes. And Joy Reid says, I think that's part of the problem. And exactly, Jayapal said. You just have a lot of fear-mongering, Reid echoed. Well, a rep for Fox News confirmed to the Post that Biden's announcement of the immigration order was indeed covered by the channel. And she said, unfortunately, Ms. Jayapal's callous and heartless response to these tragedies represents how many on the left, including in Washington, view those impacted by this Biden administration's open borders and the consequences therein, said the Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mark Green. The truth is they see only a political benefit in refusing to enforce our laws. The human devastation left behind is simply collateral damage. Good choice. I wish lawmakers on the other side of the aisle would take this crisis seriously, and that starts by admitting that, thanks to President Biden and Secretary Mayorkas, oh, God, many Americans are now rightfully afraid. I'm sorry, but I'm a victim of this myself. My liberal friends, the first thing they say when you talk about anything is, oh, Fox News, Fox News, Fox News. It's so old, okay? Fox did cover the story. And then
wait a minute.
A story.
What are they afraid of?
Oh, they're afraid that anything that Fox News said might be actually true.
Well, that's not what they're saying. Is they're saying they're fear-mongering? Well, let's go to all the multitude of Democrat ones. If you're a Republican, you hate this country and you want to kill blacks and you want to do the. I mean, right. Talk about fear-mongering, the hypocrisy of that, and yeah, it's sexist, racist, is whatever. It's so ridiculous that they sit there and say that Fox is fear-mongering when that's all they do. If you're a nationalist, this is a thing that I thought of the other day. The Olympics are coming up, right? If you support them, that's nationalism, okay? That's you supporting your nationality. You're American, okay? If you say you're a nationalist, they say you're a white supremacist. If you go to the Olympics and you watch who you're supporting, A lot of those are minority athletes. So how are you a white supremacist? You're a patriot. You're supporting your country. You're for your country. I'll never understand that.
Well, that's actually, I'm glad you said that, Stephen. I don't want to say that I'm correcting you, but let's just talk about semantics for a second, okay? Because this has been brought up with reference to Donald Trump. Patriotism versus nationalism, okay? Patriotism, by definition, means you love your country. Nationalism means that you think your country is the only great country and every other country sucks.
Okay, what's wrong with that?
Well, I'm not saying anything's wrong with it, but one.
No. I'm not telling you to say that. They're saying there's something wrong with it. Why would they say that?
Because it fit the narrative when Donald Trump made that unfortunate comment on a hot mic about immigration and why do all these people from shithole countries want to come here?
There are shithole countries. I mean, come on. I don't know what to say.
I think they're shithole countries, Steve.
Yes, okay? That's why they're coming here.
Right, but if you love your country, you're a patriot. But you're right though. They mix nationalism and patriotism. Yes. Because nationalism sounds worse.
Because let's go this way, Bill. Let's do a correlation with nationalism, okay? You and I are both Boston Celtics fans, right? Mm-hmm. We have been for decades. They just won the championship. To me, they're the better team, and every other team stinks.
Yep.
Is there something wrong with saying that?
No.
It's the same thing of saying we have the greatest country in the world. The rest of them aren't as good.
Well, both of them are focused on what? Pride.
Yes. What's wrong with being prideful? I think that's one of the things this country's lost. Nobody has pride in anything.
You know, Steve, in 2020, you saw the RNC. We both watched the conventions, okay? You realize that the DNC didn't have one American flag showing in the entire room?
Yes, I did. That was a big subject that came up.
These people are Americans.
And they hate
This
America.
Is your flag. And there are people in this country who hate the flag, okay? This
they
is
hate
mind-blowing to me. Yeah, they do hate the country. And this is the only country in the world where our own citizens are being taught to hate it. A lot of countries are being taught to hate us. But the fact that we're being taught to hate us is beyond me. So,
well, how about this? This country is so great that they afford you to even hate it and stay here.
I know.
Go hate another country and start talking about it. But keep going.
Do that in Red Square, please.
Yeah. See what happens.
Or do it in China. Do it in front of a tank. But the thing is, someone did that. I'm sorry. No, but back to the nuts and bolts of the story. We're talking about the fact that they're prioritizing language and they're mocking people who are simply they're mocking this father. They're mocking this girl as if to say this story wasn't important. It was only something that Fox News was using. The fearmonger. That's the biggest story here. Fox covering a story. This is what the problem with Fox is with liberals. They say, oh, Fox isn't news. It's entertainment. Bullshit. They talk about the same stories every other network talks about. It's news, okay? But no. Fox is fearmongering. Why? They reported a story that you don't like? Oh, my God. Here's a binky and a fucking blanket. Go away, will you?
Oh, but CNN and the left media never fearmongers.
Oh, no way. No one ever tells you what to be afraid of and who to blame for it. No, that never happens.
There's no victimhood on the left at all, ever.
No, it's insane. This is a larger topic. We should probably delve into more, but all right.
We could.
That's my story. I mean, I don't have to rail on the reasons why illegal immigration is a horrible thing and the consequences of what's happened to this country. People are going to either have to face up to it and recognize it or not. The choices are that simple here. They really are.
Absolutely.
And you're on the wrong team, a lot of you. I'm sorry. You really are.
Yeah. Well, good topic. I liked it. A lot to discuss in that. The reactions are disgusting from the left. And, of course, the right is making it important, and that's fine. Just because it's a story on Fox, you can't belittle it. Just because it's a story on Fox, you can't belittle it. But don't sit there, left media, and act like they're the only media that fearmongers, because you folks act like every single thing is a victim on this in this country.
And let's not laugh at a 13-year-old girl who got raped and her poor father had to deal with the consequences.
She is a despicable human being. Let's be honest.
She is. She really is.
We're going to move on here at the We Are Marshall podcast to Bill's educational segment, This Day in History. So go right ahead, Bill. Tell us about your
This
Masonic
one is
beginnings.
very, very close to my heart.
Yes.
Item A, past master symbol. Item B, Masonic mantra, faith, peace, faith, hope, and charity. Exhibit C, ring. Well, this day in history, the first Masonic Grand Lodge was formed in London in 1717, the first Masonic Grand Lodge. So it was the first ever official building built to the institution of Freemasonry, an institution that I absolutely have dove into and loved since I've been doing it for 10 years. Has made me a much better person. Of course, that may be debatable to people who listen to me talk, but it has done so much for me. But the quick story is on June 24, 1717, members of 4 local Masonic lodges, all part of a secret society of Masons, it's not secret, meet at the Goose and Gridiron Ale House in London's St. Paul's Churchyard to create the first Grand Lodge as their collective governing body. Known initially as the Grand Lodge of London and Westminster, it will evolve into today's UK Grand Lodge of England. 6 years after its founding, the Grand Lodge published the Constitutions of the Freemasons, a book whose Enlightenment principles provide the philosophical foundations of modern Freemasonry, as well as a means to govern the activities and consistency of Masons in London. And as an aside, Massachusetts Grand Lodge in Boylston Street in Boston, Massachusetts, Tremont Street, excuse me, is the third Grand Lodge in the world, established in 1733. And I was actually made master of my lodge by the Grand Master of Masons, who at that time was the third highest ranking Mason in the free world. So, may not mean to you what it means to me, but pretty big day in history. I'm glad I stumbled upon this. We're doing a podcast today. I don't have to say a whole lot more. If you want to know about Freemasonry, you email me, and I will tell you anything you want to know about it. And if you have questions or want to hear it discussed, we'll do another podcast about it. But I will.
Or check out the podcast we already did do on the Freemasons. We did do them. We will be doing more in the future. So if you want more info, we will get it over to you.
And I'd like to turn this over to my favorite aspect of the podcast, which is Steve's positive story of the day, which networks take a note. You can do this too.
Absolutely. And this is it. We're at the end of the podcast, and what he's alluding to, we always end it with a human interest story, a feel-good story, a health breakthrough, a tech breakthrough, something positive in the direction to give some good news. And this one I loved. It's really heart-wrenching. And it's a boy who got free life-changing leg surgery returns to the same hospital ship a decade, wanting to be a doctor on that boat. A boy who was given life-changing leg surgery as a toddler has returned to the same hospital ship a decade later, declaring he wants to become a doctor himself. Ramino developed bowed legs in early childhood, which prevented him from walking properly. Doctors in his Madagascar hometown suggested leg massages to correct the issue, but nothing seemed to work. Then in 2015, his worried mother, Claudia, brought her 3-year-old son to a charity hospital ship called Africa Mercy while it was docked nearby. Doctors on board performed surgery on the little lad so he could grow up running, walking, and playing football just like his friends. This year, Africa Mercy returned to Madagascar, and Ramino stepped aboard again in an emotional return. He told the staff that he wants to become a doctor himself, inspired by the Mercy ship's surgeons that saved his legs 9 years ago. I remember when Mercy ships taught me how to walk again, and when they picked us up at our house, said the 12-year-old. Now I want to give people the same healing that I received. Claudia started to notice her son's bowed legs developing when he was 2.5 years old, and it became more and more clear as he began to walk. She couldn't believe her luck when she learned Mercy Ships was coming to her country to provide free surgical care for children. After the toddler's surgery, he recovered well and grew up with healthy straight legs. In fact, Ramino, who was nicknamed Telos, says he wins most races he runs against his friends today. People are surprised when they see him because no one believed that he would look like this, said Claudia. However, he's like this now, and they always ask, is it you? Is this Telos? Ramino had faint memories of the giant hospital ship, the African Mercy. and the people who had helped him, but his experiences inspired him to want to help others. But he never imagined he would step back aboard the vessel of compassion. This marks Mercy Ship's fourth field service in Madagascar, following previous visits in 96, 2015, and 2016. I'm so happy, said Ramino. I'm happy because I never thought I was coming back here to see the ship again. Over the course of previous visits to the island nation of Madagascar, Mercy Ships collaborated with the Government Ministry of Health to provide more than 6,425 life-changing surgical procedures and over 52,395 dental procedures, while also training local healthcare providers in new techniques. Don and Dayan Stevens founded the Interdenominational Christian Organization in Switzerland in 1978 with the purchase of their first ship. Since then, various Mercy ships have visited more than 55 developing nations and 18 developed nations around the world with a focus on Africa. They currently operate a two-ship fleet consisting of the Global Mercy and the African Mercy. They describe their mission as bringing hope and healing to the forgotten poor, following the 2,000-year-old model of Jesus. So far, they've treated 2.87 million patients free of charge, including more than 117,000 surgeries and 500,000 dental procedures without regard to religion, race, age, or gender. And they inspire little boys to become doctors.
Or ability to pay.
What a great story.
That's incredible.
Oh, I loved it.
There were two Mercy ships in the U.S. Navy, and they also fly under the flag of the Red Cross. The Mercy and the Comfort. They're modeled after the first Red Cross ship, which was just called the SS Red Cross, which initiated service in World War One. They can accommodate 1,200 people at a time, and the relief work they've done in some countries, as the story indicates, is pretty amazing. If you grew up in a village in which lean-tos and huts were what you saw all day long, and you walked barefoot and didn't have a lot of modern conveniences, these ships must have been just such an incredible sight, and the most basic of medical care was available on these ships. We've done so much good work with it. It's not really talked about a lot, not really until COVID, when we started moving people onto the Mercy ships to give additional treatment to people that were unable to get into the busy hospitals. It's an amazing thing. They do so much good work. This story is not about the ship so much as it is about what the ship did, but it's all connected, and it's a completely benevolent gesture, and there's a life right there that was changed by it.
And the greatest part, like they said, it wasn't based on any religion, race, age, or gender. And you did point out, which is good, I was going to say it, we must remember that during COVID, 2 of these ships came to New York, and they took the overload of what they couldn't handle in the hospitals to help. So they are pivotal, and I hope this continues to grow. And it took me a lot to hold back on that one, because I thought that was great for that kid, and to go back there, and he's inspired to now to help others. That's the amazing part of the story right there. That touched me. But thank you for tuning in to the We Are Marshall podcast. My name is Stephen Marshall, and this is my co-host, Bill McIntyre. We are just 2 guys discussing the issues of the day, laying out the facts of those issues, and giving you our opinion and view on those issues. We would also love it here at the We Are Marshall podcast if you would like and share all of our episodes around your social media. We can be found on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Locals, X, Truth Social, and Rumble. And do expect us to be live on Twitch soon. Rumble is where we populate our full channel with season 1 and 2 of all of our episodes. Download the free app Rumble and search the We Are Marshall podcast. Then subscribe and follow to get notification of new episodes and other endeavors by Bill and I. Check out our episodes on all these social media sites and share them to help us grow. We would also love it if you would check out our website at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com. You can see a number of things Bill and I are working on the website. If you go to Bill's bio, you can click on a link to all his blog posts, And check out Vella, Vella, on Amazon, where Bill also writes episodic short stories for your viewing. Check out my 2 books currently for sale on Amazon, The Unforeseen Enemy and The Perception Therapist, and to be coming soon will be Skies Over Terrorism. Both of the previous are available now. Also, check out our sponsors, Local Prints New Hampshire. You can go to our website again at www.wearemarshallpodcast.com and click on the link to Local Prints New Hampshire on the top left. They're a full-scale screen printing company in Hampstead, New Hampshire, and they are available for domestic and international printing. Go support them as they always support us. Also, check out our large sponsor, MateConnector.com, a large dating website, just like all the other big dating websites out there, with all the features that the big players have in the dating sphere. But Mate Connector is much more inexpensive than any of the other players in the dating market. We would also like if you would support our newest sponsor, Army Ranger Painting and Contracting. You can contact and look into them at www.armyrangerpainting.com. They are a full-service contracting company supporting Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Check them out and schedule a free estimate of any project you have. If you have any questions or issues, you can always reach both of us at the following emails. You can reach Bill at wearemarshallpodcast.com, and you can reach myself, Steve, at wearemarshallpodcast.com. We thank you for watching, and we look forward to many, many more episodes with you. We'll talk to you soon. Everyone have a good evening. Thank you, Bill, and we'll see you soon.
Good show. Thank you.